Good morning, students. Today, my topic is supernatural machinery into Coleridge's poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Students, first of all, we should know about the poet. S.T. Coleridge was a romantic poet. Let us see the slide. You will come to know some of the things. He is a romantic poet. When I say romantic poet, it means there are lots of things which will help us to understand the poem. His first collection comes out with his friend Wordsworth in 1798. This date is also very memorable because it begins Romantic Age. The name of the collection is Lyrical Ballads. Most of the contribution is done by Wordsworth, but some of the poems are also there which have been written by Coleridge. And out of them, the Rime of the Ancient Mariner is a very significant poem of this collection. Coleridge basically is known for his narrative poems, and we have some of outstanding poems from him, namely Kubla Khan and Christabel. Coleridge also wrote wonderful ballads, odes, and especially Dejection Ode is very noteworthy, and there are many lyrics. Coleridge is not only known for his poems but is also a critic and a lecturer. His well-known critical work is Biographia Literaria. Students, when we understand the supernatural machinery, romantic poets have tendency especially to go into the past. They are dissatisfied with the present situations, reality, and that's why either they went into medieval ages or sometimes they went far from the reality. They also have special attraction for nature, and all these things will build up very important aspects in our understanding of the poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. We go to the next slide, and then we will come to know about the supernatural content. First of all, we should understand what supernatural means. Actually, we have different beliefs, some things which we believe and something which we don't believe. But there are certain things which we call natural. But there are other things that is not natural. We call it as supernatural. But why? Why the poets or people have such kind of beliefs in supernatural elements? Or how does it help us to understand the poem? Actually, the idea of the poet was something different. Wordsworth and Coleridge, they were writing together. Both had different philosophy. And especially Coleridge wanted to do something different than his friend Wordsworth. So he decided that his content would be different than Wordsworth, and that difference is to pay attention to supernatural elements. So that is his design, to take us to supernatural elements. The other thing is also that at a time before romantic poets came, we have classical period. There was dominance of Pope and other poets. The poetry which was so called classical, it became artificial. It was away from the common people. The pedantic show was also there, and these are the things which Wordsworth and Coleridge wanted to remove, and that's why Coleridge decided to take away the poetry to different direction. He, in his work Biographia Literaria, quotes, "Persons and characters supernatural, or at least romantic, a semblance of truth sufficient to procure that willing suspension of disbelief for the moment which constitute poetic faith." Now, if you pay attention to some of the words which will help us to understand the poem, for example, there is a word, willing suspension of disbelief. Now, there are certain things which we believe, but here we have to understand disbelief, and that disbelief will come according to our choice. We have to will ourselves not to believe this thing, but we shall think that yes, this is possible. We have to believe. That kind of a criteria we will have. That is known as a willing suspension of disbelief. You cannot say no, this is not possible. We have to say yes, this is possible, and that is how this is the base of the poem to understand. Now we go to the another slide. There are many things in the poem that is supernatural. We will see one by one and how they function in the poem. For example, we have the ancient mariner, right? That is the very first idea. If we go through the poem's beginning, you will come to know there are lots of things which make us believe that even the person, the character, the ancient mariner is supernatural. Very first line says, "It is an ancient mariner, and he stoppeth one of three by the long grey beard and glittering eye. Now wherefore stoppeth thou me? The bridegroom's door are open wide, and I am next of kin. The guests are met, the feast is set. Mayst hear the meridian." He holds him with his skinny hand. "There was a ship," quoth he. "Hold off! Unhand me, grey beard loon." At spoon his hands dropped he. He holds it with glittering eye. The wedding guest stood still and listens like a 3 years child. The mariner hath his will. You will notice some of the words in the poem that transform us into a different personality. That is the ancient mariner. Here the word, the ancient, is connotative. Either we can say ancient means a very old mariner, means a old aged mariner, or you can say mariner that is of old time. By using these words in meaning, Coleridge wants to take us to the different atmosphere where we can believe we are going into the past. That is how the poem begins, constitutes. And look, he is not a common natural person. His eyes are glittering. Right? Generally people will find that some supernatural elements, eyes, they are green and glittering. And his hands are skinny, you can say. His beard is also grey. You can hold a person and then you can tell something that this is my story. And the same thing ancient mariner is also doing. But immediately that person says that, well, I am a guest. Things are there, set. Feast is set. I want to go. So he said, leave me. But ancient mariner leaves the hand. But then he holds him with eyes. There is a power in his eyes. That is something supernatural that holds him. And that influences the guest. And there is no way. He has to listen to the mariner and his will is done. And what sort of influence, deep influence is there? The guest is listening the story like a child, 3 years child, means curiously, very interestingly he is listening. That sort of the beginning in the poem we have. This sets tone that immediately we are moved to the supernatural things which are to follow into the poem. Even later on, the mariner is so strange and something very unnatural that wedding guest is afraid of him. And he looks at the ancient mariner terribly. And he confesses, hey, you are very strange, fearful. And later on, the mariner, when he is having the curse of killing, he is a ghastly figure. Anybody would be afraid of him. That sort of feeling we have. The mariner kills a bird, and as a result, everything goes against him. He becomes sad and he is also unable to speak. There is only silence of the sea. In the nature, sea, silence, sadness, the mariner is very looking strange. Even the sky is very hot, and the poet said it's a copper sky, and bloody sun. Sun is like blood, very hot, red, and at noon, and it is very very short, like a moon. It is seen, and mariner is so strange that he is passing day after day, and there is no motion at all. The ship is also not moving. It is almost like a painted ship on a painted ocean. That kind of a thing we find there, and everywhere water is there, and the mariner found him around him that even the sea is very strange. Instead of living creatures, rot thing is there. He remembers Christ, and even he could not imagine such things would be there. Slimy things did crawl with legs upon the slimy sea. That is how ancient mariner finds everything around him. So mystical atmosphere is also there, and there are other things also. The mariner is cursed for 7 days and 7 nights, and as a result, he is very strange. You will see that in line number 224, he is feelings are put there. It is in the beginning of part 4. The mariner is so strange that even the wedding guest says, "O mariner, I fear thee, ancient mariner. I fear thy skinny hand, and thou art long and lank and brown, and is the ribbed sea stand. I fear thee, and thy glittering eye, and thy skinny hand so brown." Even mariner has to confess to the wedding guest that he should not be afraid of him. He is a man, not a supernatural human being. He consoles him, saying that, fear not, thou wedding guest. This body drop not down." That is how he is consoling him. But the atmosphere is so strange that anybody would be afraid of him. Even later on, when he is riding towards his country, when he is in the boat, he is sitting in the boat, and pilot is nearing to him. When he is taken into the boat, even the pilot is afraid of him, and he said that, "I moved my lips," and as he moved the lips, the pilot shrieked, and he is so unconscious, becomes unconscious, because he has not found that such type of a man can be there living on the ship. And holy hermit, one who is also there, generally that sort of a person would not be afraid of him. But even the pilot and the hermit also afraid of him. He raised his eyes towards the Lord, Christianity, and the holy hermit raised his eyes and prayed where he did sit. So that sort of personality ancient mariner has, and that is how this is the one character, very important character, Coleridge introduced in the poem, that is the ancient mariner. And by this, the function of the introducing mariner is to tell us the story which is not around us but which is very far away. And if we listen such kind of sailors, those who always go to the ship faring, and they have very different stories to tell. So there is a belief, that is suspension of willing disbelief. We have to believe that such things would have taken place, and that is how there is also the story takes the shape of reality. One has to believe. So this is one character. Now we move to another thing, that is another machinery into the poem, that is the albatross. The sea is full of lots of living birds, and the albatross is a very good bird. It's a very large bird, and uh, it is considered as a good bird. It is following to the sheep. While the sheep is moving towards the south pole, the albatross appears on the scene, and he is considered by the sailors as a symbol of good luck, and he is also referred as if a Christian soul, and in God's name he is also welcomed. And that is how the bird begins to play with them. He continuously moves after the sheep, he chases the sheep, flies around the sheep, and the sheep, to the sheepmates, the albatross becomes a friend and develops a kind of companionship with them. And but then suddenly something takes place to the mariner, and such a good bird is killed. It is a crime committed to the nature, and it is referred as a hellish thing. And after killing the bird, there are changing of opinions. First of all, the sailors say that, well, it is killed, it's a good thing. But then there is a good wind, and ship is also moving, fine weather is there, and that is how they said that, well, actually the bird was a kind of a bad sign, and it is good that it is killed. And that is how, by such kind of a belief, they have participated in the crime of a mariner,